It's so great to have you both here, to have the opportunity to watch this absolutely beautiful film. And I have to share that while I was standing up there, I had a number of youngsters talking about how moved they were by the whole narrative and the whole film. And I can speak for myself and say I'm not as young as they are, but I just was taken aback when he said I'm not a shadow, and it hit really hard. And there's so many moments in this film that really you think about afterwards. And it's the second time I'm watching it, and every time you just find something that really, really moves you. So thank you for that. But so I guess I'll just start by saying that I know that In Camera has been, it has been hailed as one of the most original debuts. And the Guardian said that, so, you know.
The Guardian,
The Guardian. And, it has a lot of adjectives: jagged, erratic, deliciously tart, in story. Now, I don't know what that means. That sight and sound, and I don't know what it means, but I do. But what really gets me is what you say about, you call it a colonial fairy tale, and I don't think I have ever seen a film before that presents the post-colonial subject through the oppositional lens, and you do it beautifully, and I am very grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josie, for being here.
You're welcome.
And the way you capture the character of Joanna, and one of the moments in the film that really stands out for me is the introduction to Joanna, where first you're like, okay, he wore his sleeves short, and you're thinking, is this a dressing room or something? And then it hits you, and it comes like a gut punch, and you realize what's going on. And as a mother, and I think, oh my God, that moment in the film, it stays with you afterwards. And you find yourself imagining what it would be like being in Joanna's shoes, and oh gosh. Anyhow, that's enough for me. So we're going to kick off with some questions for the Naqqash first. And so I know one thing I would really like to unpack is a colonial fairy tale, but before we do that, let's start with something really sort of simple. Let's talk about the origin story, the impetus, the reason why and why not of In Camera, and how it came about.
Yeah, I think, to me, like, the desire to make a film comes from the desire to communicate a feeling that feels a little bit inarticulate. And then you go on this journey because you're like, I have all of these feelings. I realized when talking about this film, I've become that meme where it's just like, I have all these feelings. So I have all these feelings, and you're like, I need to communicate this in some way. And then you go on a journey with all of these artists to communicate this thing that feels really base and instinctive. And yeah, it started in my notes app in 2014. And then it was 4 or 5 years of just I write a lot on the tram. I'm from Manchester. A lot in my notes app, and I kind of just sat down to Frankenstein it together. But it's a lot of thinking through things, and thinking a lot about what it is I wanted to say. And I don't want to make it too neat, being on the other end of it. I think it's just all these preoccupations over a long period of time, and then finally sitting down to be okay, the actor feels like the perfect metaphor to say all the stuff I want to say. Does that answer the question?
Well, the reasons why you started. You were pursuing a PhD in English literature, if I'm not incorrect.
Yeah.
And then to just jump into film, why did that shift happen?
Well, I always wanted to make a film, but I didn't go to film school or anything, so I just didn't know how. Honestly, I just didn't know how. And then when I graduated, I was like, oh, I'm not going to do... so I kind of stayed in academia for a bit, and I was teaching. And that was kind of my film school. I was teaching English, performance, lots of things in arts and media. And then I got into this program called iFeatures, which no longer exists, but it was like, I think the essential thing is it was an open access scheme, so like anyone could apply as long as they'd done a short film, like gone to a festival. So that's the straightforward response to that, yeah. But I always wanted to make films, I just didn't know like how, and I'd never met anyone until I finished this film. Actually, I'd never met a director. I hadn't met anyone who'd ever done it before.
You didn't miss much, but no, I think it's amazing that you were able to sort of jump into this and create something so amazing, so incredible that just affects people so deeply. So now Josie, you've worked in theatre and film for the past 3 decades. It's a long time of being in, not should be saying that maybe.
That's fine.
You're an Olivier Award nominee for Everybody's Talking About Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen you in lots of films as well. There's Kneecap last year,
Mm-hmm.
and there's Belfast,
Mm-hmm.
amongst so many others. And of course, your roles have been so varied. There's you were Sister Michael. There's your detective, and then I think in Belfast you're Auntie Violet, and now you're a grieving mother in camera. I'm just really curious about. I know you, Naqqash, you say that you didn't follow story structure, and you sort of kind of rebelled against it in a way. What were your thoughts when you came across in camera and you met Naqqash and you spoke about it, and what were your feelings?
I felt really lucky to read the script, and I felt that it was everything that goes on in my head. I liked the way it wasn't linear, and that it didn't have that formulaic sort of beginning, middle and end, and it was presented like an album, and each section was a track, and most of the characters didn't have names when we started. There were actor A, actor B, actor C, the client. I was called the client. I think when I did a tape for it that I just had the scenes, maybe, which never really changed much from what we see. And I just found it profoundly moving. And it set my imagination on fire, and I started to research grieving mothers and watching them. And when I came to meet Naqqash, we talked about her perhaps being from Northern Ireland, because I am from Belfast, but I was kind of just doing it in my own accent. And then you decided that it was interesting to have these characters coming from places of conflict. And I don't know whether anybody picks up on any connection that she has with another one of the characters. Maybe it will take another watch for you to see the links or listen to them and see where Joanna shows up in other areas.
Are you going to tell us? Yeah, you're going to tell us?
When is Rory called Beau?
Yeah, Beau.
Yeah. When
Joanna.
Beau rings home, who's on the answer machine. Beau is Irish. So we talked a lot about suicide as well in the north of Ireland, which is epidemic proportions, and we talked about that when we met. And it felt like a huge mantle, really, and I felt not the burden of it, but the responsibility of it, of how to deliver it and try and walk in that woman's footsteps, place myself into that position. But I think when we were filming it, you set the mood and the scenes very well. And it was a beautiful room as well where we filmed. And Naomi, who played the therapist, was wonderful. And of course, working with Naban was incredible. She's very concentrated, very calm and quiet and respectful set.
Did you improvise Was there a script? You said there was an album.
There was a script, and I'm always questioning scripts and trying to cut things. And Naqqash said no. No, it's gonna stay like this. So the improvisation sort of came in the feeling of it and what we did physically, of which there was a lot. And it was very free because he would just say, I don't think he said action. Did he say when you're ready? Or
I just like say whenever you're ready. I feel like
Whenever you're
action
ready,
is so aggressive. It's like, go.
Or perform.
If I was an actor, I think I'm always thinking about like trying to be my own dream director. If I was an actor, like I just wouldn't be able to do that. And I think there's something really interesting about creating like a space that feels really like open and fluid, and just something about like whenever you're ready. And sometimes it took a few minutes to just be like to find the thing, but then I don't know. It's an atmospheric thing. This is not a film that is like action. Like it was something just like we're looking for this thing, and it was just easy to be like whenever you're ready, and then we could find it.
yeah, and it just felt completely free then. And then you would sort of riff around when your dialogue would come back in. So you might say the first part of it, and then other things would happen. You'd get your emotions under control, but he would keep rolling, and you'd stay in there until I don't even know whether you said cut, but
No, I think I said cut.
somebody's
Sometimes.
it was usually the first two would be sweating and just going, are we cutting? Like what?
Yeah, but the most interesting stuff happens because you're like, if you don't say cut, you're just waiting. I don't know, I'm obsessed with time, and I think cinema is such a medium of time. Like time is the thing that we're really all playing with, and there's just something so interesting about like the scene being over, but then we're instinctively following what Joanna might want to do, you know, or what Aidan might want to do, and you find these moments, and they feel like everything that you've been looking for. And I'm obsessed with like the moments in between a thing, and not the thing itself. Like I want to live in an in-between space. I'm so much searching for like the commas and the punctuation rather than like the words themselves. And I think there's something really exciting about like playing with a fragmented sense of time, and kind of like almost like I feel like sometimes I was like trying to like put people to sleep.
I think you're absolutely right, because silence and pause, I mean, they hold a huge meaning. We don't give that enough credit, but more than words. And I think that's what you find in camera quite often is the spaces, is the spaces in between, and that's where you find meaning. And those are the things that actually then stay with you afterwards. So one of the questions that I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm just so being desperate to ask you, is a colonial fairy tale. You speak about decolonizing your own mind when you wrote in camera, and I'll tell you something. When I was watching, at one point I really expected a South Asian mother walking in with Tupperware freezer boxes of curry to go in the freezer. I kid you not, I really did. And she never turned up, and I was so relieved. But you know what it said to me? It spoke to me about my own colonized mindset as a post-colonial subject myself. It said I had to go and think about who I was, what I was doing here, and what my purpose is. So I think that's one of the things. But that's why I want to know, why do you call it a colonial fairy tale?
Oh, there's so much I want to say, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but like, to me, these three men had to be connected in some way, you know? And I saw them all as like post-colonial subjects. I thought, you know, if I made this film 100 years ago, it could really be about Rory's character, because as an Irish person, he wouldn't necessarily be read as white. And I think I was fascinated by like the link between capitalism and whiteness and race, and what all of these things mean, and what it means to occupy a sense of whiteness. And I think it's really important to remember that I think so much about this medium is about inheritance, and a lot of the cinema tools that we use, they're actually just built by the military. They're actually weapons, you know? And what it means to, you know, shoot, and like how Kodak film stock was developed, like everything we're inheriting is so colonial. You can't not but question it. But also like the 3-act structure, you know, it's kind of like a man going on a journey to conquer obstacles, you know, it's like there's something so colonial and male about these structures that I think I'm a little bit like a toddler. I'm like, why? Why does it need to be 3 acts, you know? I mean, I was doing a PhD in English, so it's like I understand story structure. It's like, why do I need to do that? And I think there's something exciting about feeling like you're a bit of an inventor. Like I feel like if you're making films, you're inventing something. This language has only been around for like 100 years. Cinema's a new medium, you know? It's not like theatre or the novel that has this like tradition that's had time to play and like, you know, had periods of like modernism and like experimentation. I feel like cinema is still figuring itself out, and I'm really inspired by like Malcolm X, Angela Davis, Naomi Klein, like writers, bell hooks, like radical writers who are often questioning the inheritance of how we inherit systems and how we operate systems and how to reimagine systems. And I couldn't not bring that lens to how I view story structure. Like I think everything in art is political, and I really wanted to have this colonial fairy tale, these 3 men, and someone who's Irish, Egyptian, Pakistani, like they live in this house, there's this shared horror, even if we don't talk about it, even if you don't pick up on it, there's this shared thing that binds them together. Yeah, and I'm kind of fascinated with all these questions and posing these questions, and yeah, I know that's not the neatest way to answer it, but
Now you say there, you know, you didn't follow structure, the conventional structure, as you might call it, but it does. There is a thread.
yes,
And it's just so dense, and it's packed together so well and packaged for it to have the impact that it does. We don't have a lot of time. I know, Josie, you have to leave as well, but I've got one question for you, and I've been wanting to ask is, what do you think about the line, an actor is told where to stand, what to do, what to feel, and what to say? How do you interpret that?
I don't know. I feel like there is so much of this film that is a feeling and shouldn't be, or you shouldn't feel the need to explain it. But I do have an emotional response to those statements, and rather like decolonizing the mind. He's a very smart man, and I'm very lucky to have him in my life, because I think those are sort of words to live by. He makes you think about how you live your life, and to be more present and mindful of the labels you give yourself and the rules that you make yourself. You're somehow policing yourself to this invisible force. It definitely has changed the way I feel about acting, and it's very hard to go on a set now without him. But I try to sort of carry that with me forwards, and feel fortunate that I have that experience and I can take it on board. But it sort of makes you feel like a product, really, and Aidan is very much that. The way people project onto him and treat him like a commodity, or how he gets destroyed, is really, really upsetting, isn't it, to watch, because he's such an innocent, and he's trying to exist authentically in an inauthentic world. So I find it incredibly moving. That's all I can say.
It's amazing you say that, trying to find authenticity in an inauthentic world, and I guess we do need films like this to sort of shake up the system and make us think. Again, a lot of time we're told what to think, and a bit like myself, looking for that South Asian mum. When you don't find it, then that's when you question, and I think that's really important. So now I think we're going to open the floor up to questions from the audience. Do we have a mic for them?
To shout out.
Shout out.
I'm just going to meet you in the audience if you want.
Jerry Springer.
just want to see what you guys look like.
Oh yeah, I've got a question here. Hello.
It's been a pleasure hearing you talk about it. I just want to ask you about the visual style of the film, because the depth of field I think is so poignant, and we get a really, that brought me really close to these characters, especially when he's standing in a crowd of faces, but I can see Aiden in a lot of these scenes. Did you always know you were going to shoot it in that sort of handheld, intimate way, or is that something that you
Yeah, no, thank you for
yourself?
that. There was a lens that, like, so we had a day of, sorry, across to your, I interrupted you there.
No, I was just, because you mentioned that obviously you were new to filmmaking, so all these cameras and equipment, you probably didn't know where to start, but I like what you did. So
Thank you.
I like it.
Yeah, so Tasha Back, who shot this film, and me, we developed this visual language together, and we had a day where I knew that I was going to have this kind of first person, almost interior access to Naban's character, and I imagined like that would be quite confronting for Naban. So we did a day of like me saying, look, I'm going to put the camera really close to you, and I just want Tasha to get used to like your body, and like your body to get used to like having the camera here and like having like an authentic, not still live response. And then I did lots of like lens testing, and then there was this 85 lens I just had an emotional response to because it just felt so intimate. And then we called that lens like the Aiden. So then I labeled all the lenses depending on how they made me feel. And then we had these like rules that like 85 could only be Aiden. But then how about we extended that to Bo when Aiden was out of the frame, and then maybe there would be this like weird twinning effect that you'd feel emotionally. So I think because I didn't have a lot of technical knowledge, I was able to like really be naive in the best way and make emotional decisions based on how I felt, because I didn't know the difference between like, well, this is 55, this is 85, this makes me feel this makes me feel that, this makes me feel that. That's the visual language. So we did a test shoot with Naban, and actually when he's in the orange jumper and the FK Twigs track is playing, that's actually from the test shoot. There's no crew, it's just me, Tasha, and our gaffer Paul, because that was so effective. We just put it in the film too. So it was just like from a process of play, and then me deciding emotionally I respond to this. I hope I get to hold on to that. Like, I don't want to know too much. Like, I want to just be able to make emotional, instinctive decisions. But I know that there's a timer on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Don't be shy. Arthur?
So yeah, thank you very much for sharing your film. I mean, a few questions about the film coming together. Interesting. I really enjoyed the themes. Really enjoyed the ambition of the piece. But as someone who's worked with a lot of first-time directors, I'm interested also in what you're thinking about next. So I guess my one question is, what are you thinking about next? But just before that, I was interested to see, the BBC Films and the BFI and a lot of the institutions involved, and effectively 6 white women at the end of the 7 credits, principal credits, and how you felt talking about some of these issues, how they responded, what that relationship was like, were they forthcoming? So just in terms of the journey and how that sort of idea of a radical narrative, you were able to achieve a space that felt safe or capable, or how much you felt you were generating something that may have been of their taste. And then further to that, very interested to hear what you're doing next.
Thank you for your question. To answer it simply, I made myself a promise. I was like, I have this feeling, I'm going to hold on to this feeling, and if I never make another film again, that's totally fine by me. So I just promised myself that this is the only thing I'm going to make, and in 5 years I might be working in some office somewhere, respectfully. And at least I'll be able to say, you know what, I made the film I wanted to make, and it's fine if I don't go on to make something else after this, and I will trust myself, and this is what I'm going to do. But that was like a conscious thing I had to keep grouping with, we're still doing this, aren't we? I was like, yeah, of course we are. And I was like, great, okay, cool. So then just holding on to that, and sometimes you have to hold on to that tighter. But I felt very supportive from BBC Film when I went in and pitched the film, because I was very this is the film I want to make, this is what I want to do. And I was very clear and upfront, the abstraction, the experimentation was so core to how I wanted to make it. But yeah, I had to just hold on to that and keep my promise to myself. And I think moving forward, I only want to make things that, I love working with actors, I love collaborating, that's why I'm not a novelist and why I want to make films. And I just will continue that promise. I'm not a careerist, I'm not out here trying to think, oh, I need to make a £5 million film with X person and a 10 and I'm going to do this. Like, I just want to like translate. It sounds like I'm going back to that. I have all these feelings. I want to just translate these feelings with people and continue to do that because I've done shit jobs like most of my like 20s, like working in a takeaway, working in like retail, and you just think, I just promised myself if I ever got the opportunity to do what I really wanted to do, I'd be like true to what I wanted to do, and then I'll just go back to doing the shit thing if I can't do what I want to do. You know, this is too. I don't want to say this is difficult, but like you give so much of yourself away, and it has to be. For me, it's like it's just not worth it unless I can just be myself doing it. Yeah.
Just one more question.
I'll be concise. I'm learning to be concise. I would just ramble on at the beginning.
I just wanted to say congratulations, hello, on an absolutely incredible film. It's very liberating to watch a movie, hear you talk about it, but also just interestingly noticing on the credits, brown person 1, brown person 2. You don't often see that in credits. As a film critic, I have to watch the credits. So I thought it was both amusing, ironic, and just there's a lot to unpack from in camera. But I wanted to ask you, because in the media in general, people that work in the media will understand that there's always a box, there's always the hole, the square peg, and you know, and I certainly think from my career that, you know, as a person of colour, as a woman, as an Arab, as a Muslim, there's a lot of things that I've done differently that I've been told not to do, and I've just done it anyway. And yet I'm always trying to, you know, you're always trying to walk that fine line of doing your craft and doing something well, but also not being the box, the you know, ticking all the boxes or whatever. So, you know, it's really, please, Naqqash, hold on to, you know, but was it liberating making the film that you wanted to make? Sorry for the long question, but was it liberating? How has the response been? And Josie, obviously, feel free to answer if anyone has come up to you and told you how the film has impacted you, because it's really, really important what you've done, and I don't think you should underestimate that. And Arabs do talk with their hands, by the way. So the hand in the face with Amir, that was very subtle, but yeah.
Thank you so much for your question and solidarity in that. I had to fight for that. No, they're called brown person 1, they're called brown person 2. They're like, no, you have to give them names. I was like, no, I'm reenacting the violence because this is what you lot do, so I'm going to do it too. A lot of this was like committing violence against characters and like reproducing violence a lot, but a lot of that was like in a dialogue with my collaborators, being like, we're really going there, this is what we're doing. And I think there is an irony to it, there is a play to it, and it's exciting to play in a space that has often been a site of like violence to you, and to play with that. And I think there is a real liberation in that. I feel like your question was so expansive, and I want to like say lots of things, and I'm aware of time. And I think what I will say is, it's challenging, and it was challenging, and it continues to be challenging. And I think you just have to hold on to something. It sounds so cliche, but you just have to hold on to your sense of self so tightly, because I think as soon as you're working in the arts in any way that is linked to capitalism, you're a commodity. And it's like, I felt constantly putting this film out, talking about it, like there's me, and then there's this idea of me. And I'm constantly being measured to this idea of me, like, should have been a more accessible film, could have gone to this festival, could have done this. If you'd done X, Y, and Z, you would have been here. You could be in the brown version of, you could be doing this, and it's like, nah. I'm going to be me here, and everyone's welcome to this party if you want to come to this party. This film isn't for everyone, I'm sorry, but like, a film for everyone is a film for no one, you know? So I'm just going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to give myself the liberation of freedom of that, and not think, oh shit, I better not fuck this up because I'm only going to get one chance at doing it. You know, like, I really, like, when I talk about, like, I had to decolonize my mind to narratively figure out what this film was, I also had to decolonize my mind to think about, you know what, I'm going to navigate the space on my own terms, and if you don't want to play out with me afterwards, sorry, like, it's on you, you know?
I have to agree and add to that as well, because I felt like I made that, what I made was for me, but for, in the hope that it would help someone, and that person came up to me after we showed it at LFF, and I felt so vulnerable and exposed afterwards that I just sort of put my coat on and put my head down and walked out, and a lady tapped me on the shoulder and said, "I lost my son." That was it. And I went home. I didn't want to go to the party or anything, but I felt like it was one of the most powerful moments that I'd ever had, and I thought that was why we do it, to give catharsis, to connect, and you wrote that.
I was like a lecturer at university, and like one of my fears was like always someone telling me they were going to kill themselves or they wanted to. And I remember going to work every day thinking, oh no, is this the day that's going to happen? Because there's like an epidemic of like, especially young men, but like young people. I don't know why I'm talking about this. And then one day it did happen. It happened like twice in a week, and I just remember thinking, oh wow. I was writing this when I was still doing that job, so I feel like a lot of that bled into the film. But yeah.
Wow.
It is such a I wouldn't say harsh, it's a deep snapshot of, I think, the youth these days, and I guess as an older person I probably relate to it in a different way than the younger generation does. And they literally, even somebody said that they were having a visceral reaction to the film. They stepped out to take a breather. So it just goes on to show that the impact it had. And thank you for that. And we must applaud it again. That in camera, which is an act of resistance. To be honest, that's how I see it. Thank you so much.